This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, May 9th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
A long-promised motion to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson comes to the floor and fails. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Growing pushback against pro-Palestinian demonstrations on American college campuses.
Guided by public safety.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The Pentagon's chief says the U.S. has paused a bomb shipment to Israel.
This is obscene.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A Georgia appeals court will rule whether Fani Willis can stay on the Trump election case. Correspondent Julie Walker has the story.
On Wall Street, the Dow's on a 6-day winning streak, its longest since last year. We'll see if it can make it 7 today. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Court action in Texas could impact further a woman's ability to get an abortion. All ahead on America in the Morning. House Speaker Mike Johnson's job is safe after a strong bipartisan vote turned away efforts to vacate the speakership. John Stolnis has details from Washington.
For weeks, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, fed up with deals Speaker Johnson has made with Democrats to fund the government and provide aid to Ukraine, has been threatening to force a vote on the floor to take Johnson's gavel away from him in much the same way Kevin McCarthy's was taken from him last year. On the House floor, Greene said Johnson is abandoning his own party.
By passing the Democrats' agenda and handcuffing Republicans' ability to influence legislation, our elected Republican Speaker Mike Johnson has aided and abetted the Democrats and the Biden administration in destroying our country.
After declaring a motion to vacate the speakership, Republican Majority Leader Steve Scalise called for a motion to table it.
The yeas are 359, the nays are 43, with 7 answering present. The motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Greene and Johnson engaged in multiple meetings this week to try and head off this vote, but in the end, Greene went forward despite pleas from former President Donald Trump and other senior Republicans not to do so. Afterwards, Speaker Johnson said he will continue to do his job.
The Speaker of the House serves the whole House. That's the job, everybody. But I am a lifelong movement conservative Republican, and I intend to continue to govern in accordance with those core principles.
Unlike when Kevin McCarthy was ousted from his speakership by a larger group of House Republicans, Democrats came to the aid of Speaker Johnson. Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said their goal was simple: to prevent Greene and Republicans like her from throwing the House into chaos.
Marjorie Taylor Greene and extreme MAGA Republicans are chaos agents. House Democrats are change agents.
A motion to vacate the speakership can be brought up again by any member of the House at a later date, and it's unclear how much rope Johnson has with his Republican colleagues or if Democrats would be willing to support him a second time. John Stolnis, Washington.
A number of universities have decided that protests are going too far as more pro-Palestinian demonstrators are facing charges for violating rules on American college campuses. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports an encampment was shut down blocks away from the White House at George Washington University.
Police shut down the encampment at George Washington early in the morning and were met with tension and pushback from protesters.
The District of Columbia and Metropolitan Police Department support individuals peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. But as the chief of police, I need to be and am always guided by public safety.
Washington, D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith said that nearly 30 people were arrested from the encampment that had been set up for weeks.
In this particular location where there's private property, we will not allow them to encamp in that space anymore. As you know, I think you know that we're the best in the business when it comes to crowd management.
4 people were charged with assaulting police officers and the others with trespassing. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser praised the police response.
The chief and her team are the experts in public safety and always have the final word on how our resources are deployed.
Administrators at GW now catching grief for letting protests linger. In a letter to the Board of Trustees, parents now demanding the resignations of the university president and the provost. Some members of Congress had been urging D.C. to take action and shut the encampment down. The White House choosing to stay out of it, leaving university decisions to university administrators. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
That assessment is being made by university and colleges and obviously law enforcement, so we leave that to them to make that decision on how to move forward.
The protest creating concern on other American college campuses like MIT. And at Case Western, the university president apologizing this week after a contractor was seen on video spray painting a pro-Palestinian student in front of the campus spirit wall. Police in Chicago cracking down at protests at the University of Chicago and other area schools. And at USC, commencement ceremony start up today after the main stage event was called off because of the demonstrations. I'm Clayton Neville.
U.S. halts delivery of bombs to Israel. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Wednesday, we had over a half dozen states at risk for severe weather. How did things shake out? Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
The latest rough stretch of severe weather brought damaging thunderstorms into the South Wednesday night, with tornadoes reported in cities such as Huntsville, Alabama, as the storm continued to push to the east. The same storm will be the focus for the severe threat today, with hail, damaging wind gusts, downpours that could cause flash flooding, and some more tornadoes possible from east central Texas through much of the southeast and even into the mid-Atlantic this afternoon and into the evening. Two areas where coverage of severe weather may be more widespread are the corridor from Raleigh, North Carolina to the nation's capital, and from just south of Dallas into northern Louisiana. North of those zones, showers cross the north central plains and parts of the Midwest today, with some wet weather near the South Dakota-Nebraska border and eastward through northern Indiana. Steadier rain can be expected at times instead from southern Wisconsin into parts of lower Michigan, with showers to the east across parts of upstate New York and southern New England, and from much of Pennsylvania as well. Farther to the west, a persistent disturbance will hang over the Intermountain West today, perhaps backing a bit further to the west through the daylight hours, bringing rain showers from many locations. However, enough cold air will be in place at higher elevations to support the risk for some snowflakes to fly instead in some of the higher peaks of Wyoming and Colorado. Otherwise, we can expect temperatures to be generally on the rise through much of the Northwest and as far south as Nevada and central California through the end of the week, with Wednesday's 60s and 70s in cities such as Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco, giving way to at least one day in the 80s through the end of the week. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us everywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Angering some in Congress, the Pentagon's chief told a Senate committee the U.S. has paused a delivery of bombs to Israel amid concerns of a full-scale invasion in Rafah. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani.
In confirming the delay, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin told a Senate panel the U.S. is reviewing some of its near-term security aid for Israel.
In the context of unfolding events in Rafah,
an urban area with more than 1 million civilians sheltering. One official says the delayed shipment was to include both 500-pound and 2,000-pound bombs.
It's about having the right kinds of weapons for the task at hand.
Austin says smaller bombs are very useful in a dense environment.
But maybe not so much a 2,000-pound bomb that could create a lot of collateral damage.
But Senator Lindsey Graham counters the U.S. should not be telling Israel how to fight the war against Hamas.
Israel's been hit in the last few weeks by Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, dedicated to their destruction. And you're telling me you're going to tell them how to fight the war and what they can and can't use when everybody around them wants to kill all the Jews?
Austin says there's no final decision on providing the bombs at a later date. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A Georgia appeals court has agreed to review a ruling allowing Fani Willis to stay on the Donald Trump election case. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
An attorney for Donald Trump says the former president looks forward to presenting arguments to a Georgia appeals court that will review a ruling letting DA Fani Willis keep prosecuting the election interference case against him. Trump and some other defendants had tried to get the Fulton County DA removed from the case, saying her romantic relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade created a conflict of interest. The judge overseeing the case ruled Willis could continue if Wade stepped aside, which he did. The judge allowed Trump and the others to seek a review of his ruling from the Georgia Court of Appeals, which on Wednesday agreed to take the case. I'm Julie Walker.
Where Microsoft's new $3 billion high-tech data center will land. We'll have that and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is sponsored by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. On how we can expect markets to open later this morning, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed day for the markets yesterday. The Dow on a 6-day winning streak, its longest since last year.
Market breadth in general, very strong on a 10-day basis, one of the strongest breadth readings we've had in a while. It's global. We have other markets working.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. Airbnb shares fell last night in after-hours trading. It beat earnings estimates in the last quarter. But in its quarterly results, it offered light guidance for this current quarter and more modest pricing for homestays. Instacart out with better than expected results for the last quarter and an outlook for the current quarter that was higher. Robinhood out with solid quarterly results last night and higher transaction revenue. That's its bread and butter, fueled by people buying crypto on the Robinhood app. Putting what some call the Foxconn con in the rear view, President Biden was in Wisconsin touting a deal for Microsoft to build a new data center on the exact same site where President Trump announced Foxconn would build a factory. Foxconn cost Wisconsin taxpayers tens of millions of dollars, and it never built anything.
Microsoft to invest $3.3 billion in a high-tech data center. The facility in Racine County will be built on the same land where Foxconn had once planned to construct a $10 billion factory. As the Journal points out, former President Trump once called that the eighth wonder of the world.
Right.
Didn't happen.
This money, my guess would be, will be spent, and this will be created.
CNBC's Carl Quintanilla and David Faber. Beer giant AB InBev shares popped yesterday on a strong quarter as the anti-trans Bud Light boycott fades away. AB InBev is the world's biggest brewer. It makes Budweiser, Corona, and Stella Artois. More people applied for mortgages last week. The rate on a 30-year fixed home loan came down closer to 7%. Applications for a mortgage to buy were still down 17% from the exact same week last year, as the spring home selling season's on pace to be worse than last year.
Jessica, how's summer travel shaping up?
You know, demand may actually be softening a little bit. Could it be? So those who do travel could have a little bit of an easier time.
We're not seeing the incredible surge we did right out of COVID. It's sort of starting to be exhausted. I don't really see a sign of a lot of leisure travel ending. I think some of the destinations that got the most traveled, theme parks, national parks, Hawaii, they sort of got overdone. And so I think you're seeing a little bit of pullback there.
The Points guy's Clint Henderson on CNBC. On today's watch list, we get a lot of earnings again from Warner Brothers Discovery, Krispy Kreme, Papa John's, Roblox, and Dropbox. We also find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week.
Thursday Business, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, restitution for FTX investors after these messages. America in the Morning continues. A new court ruling in Texas is adding to legal actions to try and limit a woman's ability to seek an abortion. Lisa Dwyer has the story.
The Texas abortion ban provides for enforcement either through private civil action or under the state's criminal statutes, which were updated to prohibit nearly all abortions, punishable by up to life in prison for anyone held responsible for helping a woman obtain one. The legal action, filed by attorney Jonathan Mitchell, seeks to assert that women can't leave Texas to get an abortion somewhere else. If approved, the court could allow the man to seek documents related to the alleged procedure and order the woman and others accused of helping her to sit for depositions. In a separate case, Mitchell is also representing another Texas man who is suing 3 of his ex-wife's friends, accusing them of wrongful death and seeking $1 million in damages for helping her get pills to self-induce an abortion. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Many people lost money after FTX went bankrupt, but now there's hope, as correspondent Haya Panjwani reports, that a fund set up to help the victims will now begin paying them back.
FTX says that nearly all of its customers will receive the money back that they're owed 2 years after the cryptocurrency exchange imploded. Some will get more than that. It was the 3rd largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world when it filed for bankruptcy protection in November 2022, after many customers pulled out of the currency. FTX said in a court filing that it owes about $11.2 billion to its creditors. It estimates that it has between $14 and $16 billion to distribute to them. CEO and founder Sam Bankman-Fried resigned when the exchange collapsed. In March of this year, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison for fraud. While FTX is technically still a company, its future remains unclear. I'm Haya Panjwani.
America in the Morning for Thursday, May 9th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, production assistants Christian Matos, our senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
3 big public school systems are rejecting allegations they've let anti-Semitism run rampant. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Severe weather in the Midwest damaged homes and businesses this week. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The mayor of Houston says that a recent discovery was the final straw for the city's police chief. I'm Clayton Neville.
Jose Ibarra, the suspect in the University of Georgia campus slaying of Laken Riley, has been indicted on murder charges. I'm Sue Aller.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is challenging Donald Trump to a head-to-head debate. I'm Ed Donahue.
We're back after these messages. Welcome back, and thanks for listening. This is America in the Morning. Beginning in the West, today's outlook with AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
We are in for a mid-spring warm-up through much of the northwestern United States and across most of northern California, Idaho, and into parts of western Utah through Friday, as midweek highs in the 60s and 70s from Portland and Seattle through San Francisco transition closer to the 80s through the end of this week, with strong high pressure nearby promoting sunshine. A bit farther to the east, a pesky storm hangs over the interior west today, and it may even shift a bit more to the west as the day progresses. This feature brings rain showers for many spots from Montana across northeastern Utah, but plenty of cold air is expected to settle to the surface at higher elevations that should support the chance for some snow through the highest terrain of Wyoming and Colorado. In the nation's center, showers can be expected in parts of the northern and central plains and portions of the Midwest, namely from southern South Dakota across northern Illinois, much of Ohio and Pennsylvania, and into southern New England, where the rain may be steadier instead, with thunderstorms perhaps heavy by this afternoon across much of West Virginia. Speaking of heavy thunderstorms, that leads into the most active weather for today, as the latest days-long severe weather event continues along the path of a storm as it gradually works its way toward the East Coast, with a risk for strong winds, damaging hail, flooding downpours, and tornadoes from eastern Texas across the majority of the Southwest and northward across a good deal of the Mid-Atlantic from this afternoon through the evening. In Oklahoma City, look for a nice day with sunshine and some patchy clouds on the way to a high of 78. But for Casper, Wyoming, expect plenty of clouds and chilly conditions with showers around and a high of just 47. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Nationwide, demonstrations that are violating school rules are being met with inaction, while other colleges are asking for police to make arrests. On Capitol Hill, with a number of school leaders around the nation facing scorn for their handling of anti-Israel protesting, some public school leaders tell a congressional panel that they're fighting anti-Semitism with education and, when necessary, discipline. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani has more.
At a House hearing,
it's hard to grasp how anti-Semitism has become such a dominant force in our K through 12 schools. Some kids as young as second grade are spewing Nazi propaganda, which begs the question, who has positioned these young minds to attack the Jewish people?
Florida Republican Aaron Bean suggested educators do nothing about it, which Montgomery County, Maryland School Board President Carla Silvestri denied.
We do not shy away from imposing consequences for hate-based behavior.
Berkeley, California School Superintendent Inikia Ford Morthell told the panel when anti-Semitic incidents are reported.
When investigations show that an anti-Semitic event has occurred, we take action to teach, correct, and redirect our students. We do not publicly share our actions because student information is private and legally protected under federal and state law. As a result, some believe we do nothing. This is not true.
Utah Republican Burgess Owen says those are all nice words.
What I'm missing is discipline, and I'm missing the word fired.
New York City Schools Chancellor David Banks says they do all of it as needed, with a focus on teaching.
This convening for too many people across America in education feels like the ultimate gotcha moment. It doesn't sound like people who are actually trying to solve for something that I believe we should be doing everything we can to solve for.
And noted the same panels held a series of controversial anti-Semitism hearings.
This convening for too many people across America in education feels like the ultimate gotcha moment. It doesn't sound like people who are actually trying to solve for something that I believe we should be doing everything we can to solve for.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
In the Middle East, as Israel takes control of the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt, they announced they've reopened one of the two crossings between Gaza and southern Israel for humanitarian shipments to pass through. However, no trucks are making the trip so far since there's no aid workers on the Gaza side to meet them. Palestinians in Rafah are being urged by Israel to head to established safe zones away from the fighting. After ceasefire talks between Hamas and Israel collapsed on Monday, so far there are no new proposals and negotiations being mediated by Egypt or Qatar. The Biden administration has said it will withhold for now certain weapons if the situation in Rafah escalates, but President Biden has said the U.S. backing for Israel is ironclad. In Jerusalem, an Israeli spokesperson said that Israel will not agree to end the war in Gaza and leave Hamas in power, and all hostages being held by the terror group must first be released. America in the Morning continues. At least 3 people are dead from severe storms and tornadoes in Tennessee and North Carolina overnight. Wednesday's tornadoes that struck parts of Michigan left people with just minutes to seek shelter. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports on the destruction. Audio courtesy of WZZM-TV, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
I step outside and I kind of looking towards where they said this tornado was forming, and the clouds were doing some crazy stuff. So let's get to the basement.
The door started to flap in the wind a little bit. Front windows and front door kind of shattered.
We came home, got here, and they were pulling somebody out of the rubble over there. And I think she's the only one that was really injured.
Severe weather in the Midwest damaged homes and businesses this week. Reported tornadoes tore through parts of Michigan, causing homes and businesses to be torn apart or destroyed. That includes a trailer park home and a FedEx facility.
There was a mobile home park that had multiple houses damaged or destroyed. And then we had reports of, and we've seen pictures of a FedEx building right near the airport in Kalamazoo. And that was damaged. Part of the roof came off and some of the sides came off also. And then we're also aware of strip mall that had their roof taken off and some of their walls that were taken down.
In an AP interview, National Weather Service Grand Rapids meteorologist Nathan Jeruzel says this weather system that brings severe storms and tornadoes is a result of the seasons changing.
Conditions, there was the ingredients that all came together. You had some warm air, you had a lot of moisture, and then the system itself was able to act on those things. and produced thunderstorms. Some of them, obviously, that became severe.
Jerusalem said no major deaths or injuries have been reported. Weather Service crews are on the ground assessing the damage. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The police chief of Houston, Texas, is out amid controversy. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Houston Mayor John Whitmire says that city officials were in conversations with Chief Troy Finner about recent concerns surrounding hundreds of thousands of cases that were never investigated.
The dialogue going to the point that he retired.
The mayor says the extent of what's believed to have been happening came to light in recent days. Earlier this year, the chief said that more than 250,000 incident reports over a span of 8 years were never submitted for investigation because they were marked unavailable personnel. Finner told the city he put an end to that, but it was recently discovered that Finner learned the process was still being used in February to dismiss sexual assault cases.
I was sick when I saw the recent email, but I don't have time to be sick. I have to protect this city and lead.
Mayor Whitmire called that email the final straw for Finner. I'm Clayton Neville.
A Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Donald Trump showdown. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. The illegal migrant accused of killing a University of Georgia nursing student in February now faces numerous charges, including felony murder. Correspondent Sue Aller has details.
Her death changed the law, and now her killer has been indicted. On Wednesday, a Georgia grand jury indicted 26-year-old Jose Ibarra on 10 counts, including felony murder, in the University of Georgia campus slaying of Laken Riley, a nursing student who was out for a jog. He was also charged with a peeping Tom offense. The indictment alleges he spied through the window of another student on the same day of the murder. Laken's father spoke with NBC News and says he misses her.
I wake up every day thinking, that I can call her, and I can't.
Her death prompted Georgia officials to create the Laken Riley law, which requires local and state officials to verify the immigration status of those over the age of 18 who have been arrested.
He's here illegally. He might not have been here had we had secure borders.
Ibarra is an undocumented immigrant from Venezuela who came to the U.S. in 2022. He was arrested in New York and cited for shoplifting in Georgia. I'm Sue Aller.
They'll be in the same place at the same time, but questions remain as to if there'll be any interaction between independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports that Kennedy has issued a debate challenge to the former president.
In an open letter posted on X, formerly Twitter, Kennedy said the Libertarian Convention in Washington later this month provides a perfect neutral territory for he and Trump to have a debate where the former president can defend his record for his wavering supporters. Both are scheduled to appear at the convention separately. Trump wants to debate President Biden during the campaign, but has shied away from other rivals. In recent weeks, he has ramped up attacks against Kennedy. On social media, he called him a radical left liberal who's been put in place in order to help crooked Joe Biden. I'm Ed Donahue.
Well, our nation's top priorities, for the most part, depends upon who you ask. The results of a new poll from correspondent Donna Warder.
The poll conducted by the Associated Press and the Nork Center for Public Affairs Research found that 9 out of 10 adults surveyed believe that the right to vote, the right to equal protection under the law, and the right to privacy are extremely important or very important to the United States' identity as a nation. And 84% who answered the survey say they feel the same way about freedom of religion. The results of the poll have only small variances between Republicans and Democrats, except for the right to bear arms, which Republicans are more likely to see as core to the nation's identity. But only 30% of Americans who took part in the poll say the nation's democracy is functioning well. About half say the U.S. is a poorly functioning democracy, and 14% say it's not a democracy at all. Donna Warder, Washington.
Immigration is a big election issue, but not spoken about as much is regarding how some are granted asylum. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports the Biden administration will propose tougher asylum standards today.
The Department of Homeland Security plans to propose a new rule aimed at speeding up the asylum claims process for migrants with criminal records or those who would otherwise be eventually deemed ineligible for asylum in the United States. Under current law, a migrant who undergoes an initial screening for credible fear is allowed to continue with the process even if they have a criminal background or would pose a security risk. Sources tell AP the change would allow an officer to determine eligibility at that stage rather than waiting for a judge. It's a potential prelude to broader actions that would impose a bigger crackdown at the border. Ben Thomas, Washington.
The U.S. Commerce Department rarely makes exceptions to any rule, but in the case of Huawei, some licenses for advanced hardware chips were issued. Congress has cracked down, and now the chips are off the table again. Our Chuck Palm explains in today's Tech News.
The U.S. Commerce Department has revoked the export license for Intel, Qualcomm, and several other chip manufacturers from exporting their chips to Chinese manufacturer Huawei Technologies. The move comes after Huawei's first AI-enabled laptop was shipped, the MateBook X Pro, powered by Intel's new Core Ultra 9 processor. The laptop's launch has drawn fire from lawmakers, suggesting that the Commerce Department had given the green light to Intel to ship the chips to Huawei. Republican Congresswoman Elsie Stefanik said in a statement, "This action will bolster U.S. national security, protect American ingenuity, and diminish Communist China's ability to advance its technology." Huawei was placed on a U.S. trades restriction list in 2019 amid fears that technology could be used to spy on Americans. Despite being on the list, suppliers to Huawei had received licenses, including one which allowed Intel to ship the new Core Ultra 9 processor. Leave a comment at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning rolls on with a check of sports. Here's John Stolnis.
Knicks guard Jalen Brunson has been perhaps the best player in the NBA playoffs since they began, so New York fans held their breath when he left the game in the first half with a right foot injury. However, the crowd went nuts as he took the court after halftime and scored 24 of his 29 points in the second half to help New York to a 130-121 win over the Indiana Pacers.
And they give the ball to their best player, Brunson. 5 to shoot. Brunson drives. Brunson scores!
TNT on the call as the Knicks take a 2-0 lead in the best-of-7 Eastern Conference semis. Off the court, Serbian-born Denver Nuggets star Nikola Jokic was named the league's most valuable player for the third time in the last 4 years, something only 6 other players have done in league history. Baseball news, the former interpreter for Los Angeles Dodgers star Shohei Ohtani will plead guilty in his illegal betting case. Ippei Mitsuhara is accused of stealing nearly $17 million from Ohtani's bank accounts to pay off gambling debts. His arraignment is expected to take place later today. And the game of the night took place in the nation's capital between the Nationals and their cross-beltway rivals, the Baltimore Orioles, with the Nats scoring 2 in the bottom of the 9th to send the game to extra innings. Both teams scored 2 in the 11th before Baltimore outlasted Washington in 12, 7-6. And that's your look at sports.
John Stolnis with a check of sports. The Peacock takes hold of The Office. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. Over 20 states, including Texas, Florida, and Georgia, are suing the Biden administration over its new rules to protect LGBTQ students from discrimination in federally funded schools. The lawsuits follow the Education Department's expansion of Title IX federal civil rights rules, which will now include anti-discrimination protections for students on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. Title IX was originally enacted in 1972 to prevent sex-based discrimination and sexual harassment in educational programs and activities funded by the federal government. The new Title IX rules do not address trans participation in sports. Shifting gears, he was known as an icon of the rock underground. Entertainment correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports on the death of music producer and engineer Steve Albini.
What else should I be?
Steve Albini was a producer who preferred to be called an engineer. His album credit usually read, recorded by Steve Albini, if he accepted credit at all. Albini worked on Nirvana's In Utero album, as well as Surfer Rosa by the Pixies and Razorblade Suitcase by Bush. Albini's work also included music from PJ Harvey, Helmet, The Jesus Lizard, and The Breeders. Albini released his own music with the bands Big Black and Shellac. He was an outspoken critic of the music industry and a successful poker player. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
Some members of the staff of Dunder Mifflin are getting a reboot. Kevin Carr reports the Peacock streaming service greenlights a spin-off for The Office.
The future of The Office has been rumored about for years.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
After more than a decade, the makers of The Office will be tackling another struggling paper company. This time, it's a newspaper instead of an office product. Greg Daniels, who brought the series from Great Britain to America, will executive produce along with Michael Coman. Originally developed by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant in the UK, The Office is one of the most popular sitcoms of all time and has spawned more than a dozen international versions.
They're the same picture.
A new Office has been rumored since last fall. However, fans might be upset it's not a direct sequel or reboot.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Still, it will take place in the same universe. The currently unnamed series will feature the same fictional documentary crew that followed the workers at the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. This time, the subject is a publisher trying to revive a dying historic Midwestern newspaper with volunteer reporters. The new series will be led by Star Wars and Harry Potter actor Donald Gleason and Sabrina Imperatori from The White Lotus. Production begins in July, and it will air on Peacock. I'm Kevin Carr.
From our office to yours, that's our show for today. America in the Morning for Thursday, May 9th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Production assistants Christian Matos. Our senior producer is Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.